Hello the internet, and welcome to the Game of the Year Rewards, according to Dink, which is who I am. But the Game of the Year Rewards name is probably taken, so we should just call this the Dinkies. Award ceremonies usually aggregate the opinions of a broad field of experts to ensure the most unbiased and objective result, but it never works out that way. They're always wrong, and if you gave them the chance, they'd find a way to give Game of the Year to Alison Krauss. That's why I think I'm the one for the job. Just me. I could have asked some of my friends what they thought, but I didn't even do that. I think I have pretty good taste, and I agree with almost all of my own opinions. But I'm blathering. Let's get to our first award of the evening. Minions! The curtain. Oh fuck, what's that? Oh, it's just a game, and a damned good one. The biggest surprise of the year is a game I just didn't see coming. I mean, I probably knew it was a game that was going to be released, but I didn't think I was going to like it until it found some back door into my heart. I should get that checked. Loot River is a game I actually thought I would like, but I was still surprised by just how much. It's a unique roguelike with Tetris-esque, with a puzzle element, and we might talk more about it later because this game could be the most fresh and original release I played all year. Neon White, on the other hand, does not look like a game I would be into because I already have a waifu, but the platforming is incredibly fast and satisfying, and I'm honestly amazed it took the world, 25 years to turn rocket jumping in Quake into a whole entire game. It feels great, and I'm willing to ignore the story. But the game that really shook me to my core this year was OlliOlli World. It's kind of like Neon White in that it's a fast-paced game of pattern memorization and twitch reflexes, and oh so satisfying. But it's nothing at all like Neon White because that game is built on the shoulders of Quake, which I love, and this game is... I don't even know because I've never played Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, or Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. There are probably other skateboarding games, but I haven't played them, and there's just no way that people who talk like this...
with a steez that is true, and a style that is both sick and gnarn,
could ever fit into my game library. But they do. Oh, they do. And OlliOlli World is honestly definitely one of the best games I played this year. It succeeds at everything Sonic the Hedgehog games fail at, for me, and feels like the spiritual successor to fucking Uniracers. And how is that sentence not a surprise? But that's enough positivity. It's time for a category I'm far more passionate about. Man, a lot of games let me down. I have high expectations, and I'm known to be a little bit incredibly overwhelmingly critical of almost everything, so I'm used to this feeling. It's a feeling I got from Thymesia this year because for how close it came to being an actually good indie Souls-like, it just ends up feeling a bit like bargain bin jank. Even the name has that slightly off-putting feeling. Thymesia. You can't say exactly why it's wrong, but surely somebody could have spent a little more time working on that. On the flip side of that, Have a Nice Death is probably too polished for me. The game is much more interested in filling the screen with flashy effects that look good in screenshots than in solid and satisfying gameplay. And I don't know how else to describe this one except to say that it feels like a big studio like EA wanted to get in on this roguelike trend that's all the rage with the kids these days. It's not terrible, but it's not good. But nothing this year was able to disappoint me to the level that Somerville did. I just wanted so badly to love this pile of doo-doo. It has so much DNA in common with Limbo and Inside, and it genuinely looks beautiful. So I never thought that they'd let me down. But oh, they did. They dropped the ball on this one, from a great height. This game is buggy as hell, and even if it wasn't, you can see the corners they cut in hacking this garbage together all over the place. The basic gameplay mechanic isn't even good. You just melt blue stuff so you can walk past it. I don't know how this game was released in such an obviously unfinished state. They didn't even get past the idea phase before they shipped it. But I'm moving on with my life. A little wounded, but a little wiser. Looking for something, hopefully, completely different. I considered Cult of the Lamb for this category because the mashup of a fairly mediocre action roguelike with a fairly mediocre Animal Crossing is new. But I think the merging of two genres has to be successful to win an award for it, and for me, this game is wildly overrated. Ship of Fools did a better job of forcing the roguelike idea down the throat of another genre. which in this case was tower defense. But it stumbles a bit with the sometimes frustrating controls and runs that feel basically exactly the same every time. The Night Witch was probably the best game this year, just taking a bunch of different genres and sticking them into a blender. It's a deck-building, bullet hell, metroidvania RPG, and maybe a few other things. It's actually pretty good at wearing some of those hats, but somehow the game as a whole just comes out feeling, I don't know, a little bit soulless. So what's the most original game of the year then? I already told you, it's Loot River. Where the other nominees in this category feel like somebody sat down and said, I like this thing and I like that thing, so let's find some way to force them to work together, god damn it. With Loot River, it feels like the developer just had a really good idea in the bath one day, playing with his Tetris floaties. It's the difference between a song written by a singer-songwriter on the back of a napkin in a Denny's after a night out catching diseases, and one written by a team of producers trying to take advantage of last year's trends. Loot River isn't mechanically perfect, but it's extremely interesting, and it deserves the win here for feeling like genuinely new territory. Look, I understand this category is a little bit confusing and subjective, so let's knock out a couple more traditional ones. Best music / sound, I guess. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do separate categories for music and sound design, but I realized that the results wouldn't be very different. It turns out that good games are usually the ones that do things well. Now, if there was a category here for just sound design, I might have considered giving that to V Rising. Every sound you make when you're beating up rocks and trees is perfectly heavy and satisfying, and I somehow never even got bored with this demented little vocalization your dude makes every few swings. Plus, there's the tantalizing sound of sizzling skin. And if I was going to have a category here for just music, I might have to give that to White Lavender. There's a good chance you've never heard of it, but all you need to know here is that I used to run a Radiohead fan community, and I like pretentious ambient electronic noise in a very unhealthy way. Fortunately, I decided to combine music and sound into just a single dinky with an ear on it. And if that's the story we're telling, then Elden Ring has a perfect, dark, and fantastical score to go with its viscerally satisfying combat sound effects. And somehow it's still lost to this fucking guy. Yeah, I know I said Cult of the Lamb was overrated, but the game's presentation is not the culprit there. In terms of sound design, it's not only perfectly effective, but constantly full of character as well. These little chanting guys go a long way. Plus, the music actually hits me right in my king of limbs sometimes. But it's not just nice to listen to, it actually serves the gameplay and perfectly fits the tone. You couldn't ask for better. Unless you hate music, then you might want something else entirely. Can I interest you in some eye candy? First of all, I'm sorry to keep doing this to you, Mr. Miyazaki, but Elden Ring isn't winning this one. As great as the art direction is, half of it's just straight up copy-pasted from Dark Souls, and in terms of fidelity, this game is no technical marvel. And it's not going to be Cult of the Lamb this time either, because I'm irrationally hateful and an unfair person at my core. Plus, I really don't want to give the same game 2 awards in a row. What are you going to do about it? Fight me, you pussy. Really though, there were just a lot of very stylish and attractive games this year. Even Somerville has a lot going for it, though this might also be a case where it's ripping off its own predecessor a little bit too much to impress me. It's a real shame I can't give Inside an award this year, because I would give you everything, my sweet, sweet child. And then there's Stray, which is everyone's favorite indie everything this year. It has not only a pretty wonderful set of cat animations, but very detailed environments that make its world feel rich and surprisingly believable. But beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and I took the beholder's eye out and ground it into a fine paste. Then I put a Game of the Year award in the empty socket and until I HR'd all over my Geiger. Because Scorn is not only the most visually distinctive and engaging Game of the Year for me, but dare I say, some kind of beautiful. No, it works good. Nothing wrong with that.
He's okay. He's okay.
He's not
okay.
The gameplay of Scorn might not be outstanding, but it's fine. And what matters in this category is that they absolutely nailed the aesthetic. Even if you just think of it as walking through a virtual H.R. Geiger exhibit, that's kind of how I want to spend my time. Look, I understand that a world made almost entirely of steampunk vaginas isn't to everyone's taste, but that just leaves more for me. Okay, alright, I'll understand if you need a little bit of a break after that. So how about we give the current timeline a little bit of a rest here and hand out the award for the best game of 2023 and 2022. What the fuck is he talking about? This is where I try to predict the game I'm going to give Game of the Year to next year. Hard to thoroughly review a game you haven't played yet, but don't put it past me. I'm a citizen of the internet, and I can and will form my opinions with as little actual information as possible, and defend them to the death. Speaking of the internet, I'm not quite stupid enough to give this one to Hogwarts Legacy or Diablo 4. I want to keep my channel, after all, so whether or not I'm looking forward to either of those games, I'll never tell. But there are other great games on the horizon. Even though Somerville let me down hard, Cocoon is another game with the DNA of Inside and Limbo coursing through its veins, and nothing on this earth could stop me from buying it on release. I don't know what it is about these guys. They've split into at least 3 studios at this point, and they're all still kind of making games that look and feel the same. And I love it, not you. However, there's one game coming out in 2023 that I actually have spent some hands-on time with already, and it's really very good. Gunbrella has the platforming sharpness and complexity of Celeste, to which it does also bear a bit of a resemblance visually, but I can't hold that against it. And if the game was literally just a platformer a bit like Celeste that felt almost as good as Celeste, well, that would be enough. But Gunbrella brings exciting and fresh combat to the table, and it's not pulling any punches on difficulty. The demo I played was so good, it would probably win on some years if the full game ended right there. So, I guess you could say I'm looking forward to it, but if that's not your thing, check over your shoulder, because I think there's something coming up behind you. Ah, here we are, back in the comforts of the past, where some people never leave. The Most Enduring Game Award goes to a game that didn't come out this year, but kept itself relevant and earned the right to stand shoulder to shoulder with the new hotness in 2022. Games like Fortnite that are just sort of there and feel like they've always been there, and no matter how much you try to get your friends to do something interesting with you, they'll only ever agree to get on voice chat if you're aborting 12-year-olds in no build mode, or playing the same Jackbox party packs over and over again to show off your most creative spellings of the word. World of Warcraft had a surprisingly good year, given how rough going it's been for Blizzard since the Antichrist revealed himself to be an abomination stitched together from parts of most of the staff, not to mention their ongoing quest to find as many ways as possible to ruin their own game worlds by doing things like installing slot machines in quaint medieval taverns, probably. But I hear Dragonflight is pretty good. Though pretty good will always be WoW's review ceiling in a world where social groups are no longer trapped inside of and held hostage by games. Thank fuck for Discord. There's a link down in the description if you're interested in joining my ragtag server. But the best game this year isn't quite as old as WoW, it's only from 2013. Project Zomboid is a remarkable experience that still hasn't been bested by the infinite wave of Flavor of the Month open world survival crafting games, and in 2022 it saw a much deserved bump in popularity. They finally released online multiplayer servers and made a host of massive improvements to the base game, actually at the end of 2021. And throughout the year, the game has seen a lot of support and frequent updates, as well as a very enticing development roadmap that shows this game will be around for many years to come. There's nothing like it, and it's still getting better. Alright, that's enough of the past for me. It's not safe to stay there too long. It's time to start wrapping this video up with the big awards for the straight-up best games of the year. And because this is my video, I want to start with the discount bin. This is really the place where I can provide the most value to you as a viewer. I play more games than most people, so I have a pretty good chance of finding something worthwhile at the bottom of the bin. I relish the opportunity to shine my meager spotlight on a small project that really deserves it. No, don't click away now. I'll be quick about it. I was gonna nominate a game here that I found quite charming, in spite of its flaws, but I dare not say its name now for fear of reprisal. The developer of said game joined my Discord server to have a little tantrum because he took offense to my calling it clunky, which it was. It's not like it would have won the category anyway. I was only going to nominate it to be, I don't know, supportive or something. It's clunky, if you haven't heard. But I guess you haven't, and now nobody ever will. White Lavender is pretty clunky as well, but the charm with this one is through the roof. I'd be alright with the developer taking a shit on my doorstep, honestly. Such is the power of a frenetic beat and a pretentiously arty video filter, which pairs perfectly with the drunken version of Dark Souls this lovable trash wants to be when it grows up. And Thrill Penguin is a mostly great game. Another one that's a bit of a niche interest though. It's a precision platformer where you feel constantly out of control, as if the basic movement just isn't quite cooperating with you. Sounds horrible, but it works really well for the most part. And if you play by its rules, you can reach a satisfying flow state. I say for the most part here because as the game goes on, the flow state is replaced with the no state, where the game insists on implementing a bit of patience as a mechanic to ruin itself. Maybe I'm just bad. But ultimately, my favorite tiny little game nobody's ever heard of this year was Kalender. And this one I genuinely love. It's a dead simple metroidvania that should only take a few hours to complete, and brings absolutely nothing new or interesting to the table. But fuck me if it doesn't just feel perfect through and through. The only thing I had any gripes with playing Kalender was when my thumb would wear the fuck out on boss fights and I'd need to shut the game off and go for a walk with a cup of tea to calm myself down. You see, the faster you hit the button, the more DPS you're gonna dish out, and my hyper-tapping strategy involves my entire decrepit body. You have the option to play more defensively, like a human being, but winning this way hurts and feels like cheating, so I'm a big fan. Okay, alright, coming in hot. It's almost the end now. Can you feel the anticipation? Which game did you vote for in the poll I posted on my refrigerator? Because my refrigerator has more subscribers than this channel. Oh, look at that. It says the indie game of the year is that we're out of oat milk. Link from The Legend of Zelda gets turned into a dog a lot. First, there was The Legend of Zelda Okami, and then there was Okami 2, Twilight Princess, and now I'm told this Death Door clone is Okami 3. Tunic is a very good game. I love me some classic 2D Zelda. You know, I used to post timeline theories on the Zelda message board when Radiohead was between album cycles, so it brings me great joy to see what is basically a Zelda fan game exploring a modern take on a very old formula with a large dash of Dark Souls for added flavor. The game invites a lot of comparisons, but it passes the test and stands shoulder to shoulder with its inspirations and far above most of its contemporaries. It's easily one of the best games I played this year. But Neon White did something completely different, and it's just constantly engaging and fun on some stupid, visceral level. It's one of those games that makes frustration actively enjoyable by limiting it to manageable sequences and never throwing more at you than you're ready for. It's a great example of game design that understands its players and doesn't feel the need to be more than what it is. It's a good thing the shoddy dating sim is optional, and they give you a handy fast forward button, which should be turned on by default. But my indie game of the year isn't either Tunic or Neon White, and it's definitely not Stray or fucking Lamnimal Cult Sing. I haven't seen my pick get much attention from any reasonably sized outlet, and it really never ceases to amaze me that the world as a whole just has no taste. My indie game of the year is Rogue Legacy 2, the gentleman's choice. I think a lot of people overlook this one because it's a sequel to a somewhat niche game and it feels pretty similar at a glance, but it builds a lot on what was a pretty solid foundation, and it just constantly finds ways to surprise and delight me at every turn. It's every bit as fun as something like Neon White in its moment-to-moment gameplay, including surprisingly complex and highly enjoyable platforming. And the combat is immensely skillful and rewarding, with great variety and a huge number of interesting weapons and power-ups that are ridiculously fun to play with. It's a wonderful game that renders its genre-defining predecessor totally obsolete. It doesn't really have to do anything new if it does absolutely everything better. But Rogue Legacy 2 does actually bring new ideas to the table. They just fit so seamlessly into the experience that they aren't immediately obvious in the marketing. You really can't write reviews based on a trailer. It's my indie of the year, and it's not even that close. And all that hyperbolic praise is for the second biggest award of this prestigious ceremony. I remind you, taking place live from my refrigerator door. Can you believe we have an award yet to go? Wake up the kids. Call everyone you know. It's the game of the year! If you're an astute sort of viewer, you'll have realized that basically every game I've talked about in this video has been an indie title, so there really should be no difference at all between Indie Game of the Year and just Game of the Year. So that's it. Rogue Legacy 2 takes it. Congratulations. Good night, everybody. But that's not quite right. There was one AAA big studio game this year that's just sort of undeniably better than everything else, and it's obviously Elden Ring. It's an all-too-rare beacon of hope from a greedy industry where everything these days is designed by committee with a strategy to monetize gameplay in as many ways as possible. It feels like the incentive is gone to design games that are just good games. Somehow that became an archaic mindset. But there's no reason that all the interesting stuff has to be made by fledgling indie studios, because when one person with a strong vision has enough power within a company that they get to make the game they want, it turns out that more resources to work with can actually be a good thing. Weird, right? Elden Ring isn't even my favorite Souls game, because I think the open sandbox design actually diminishes the scope of the world just a touch. But even if it was the worst Souls game, it would still probably be Game of the Year. The legacy dungeons, boss fights, character and creature designs, it all has that FromSoft sheen of placenta and bile. Yeah, the level of detail is high, but what really makes the difference are all of the intangible quirks of a game with a human being at the helm, and many millions of dollars to fuck with. Hopefully, Elden Ring's success can revitalize a stagnant and creatively dead industry, but this year it stands kind of on its own, refusing to eat its lunch with the other big kids, but it would probably be creepy if it pulled up a chair at the indie developers table. So it's just there, with a juice box and a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, in the middle of everything else, smugly satisfied. What do you think? Did I get everything absolutely right, or am I a complete moron? There can be no in-between, so choose your side in the comments, or just let me know what your favorite game was this year. Here's my full list of the games for PC I played this year that I would actually recommend, ordered from my most to least favorite, though I did enjoy them all. You can screenshot it, print it out, and hang it on your fridge to help me reach a wider audience. Or just give this video a like and leave a comment. There are infinite ways to show your support, so don't let me limit your creative potential. Special thanks to my patrons for helping me to make this video. I'm going to be streaming and talking about smaller indie games on my Patreon more in 2023 and saving the slightly bigger small indie games for this YouTube channel. That's it for now. I'll see you guys next year, which is... oh shit, I gotta get to the liquor store for some bubbly.